So it's just taken on a whole different life of its own, literally and figuratively.
Well, his wife, had 3 or 4 surgeries for brain aneurysm in her brain.
Already?
Yeah. And each one she's had, they said she would make it.
Is everything okay?
And every single time, yeah, one of them, we were standing in the room talking while she was unconscious, right? And about 2 or 3 weeks after she had gotten out of the hospital, she recounted the whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And with him, he is extremely intelligent, extremely bold, very articulate.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever he saw, he don't care whether you believe him or not. He's on top. That's who he is.
Hi.
So I think maybe it has something to do with where we are in terms of the what they call near-death experiences. Because I don't.
Near-life experiences, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Get a glimpse of the purity of what life is.
Yeah, I was standing there after I come back. We didn't leave till the next morning, Monday morning, right? So I was standing at this thing shaving, and I just had a flash of him being in the mirror, and I said, you know what, John? It's time for you to deal with this yourself. You can leave, or you can come back and tell everyone what you've seen. I don't think it's time for you to go. Then I said, you know what, it's not. Then I said to the Creator, there's no point in you making a decision to take him out of this earth. It's not going to happen. He needs to be here to let us see what he has seen. And it was like I'm having this conversation, but not thinking about it as a conversation.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's like everything just turned around abruptly. So I think it is related to what you're going to be expressive of. And I don't.
But you know, what I'm finding is as this is developing, is I'm not thinking about it from the deaf perspective, or from the perspective of
Suppose it is death, Barbara, but we have defined death wrong.
That's why I say near-life experiences instead of near-death experiences. Those things that happen in our life to let us see glimpses of the truth.
You know what I haven't done?
What?
I have not taken the opportunity or the time to do a search on the Hebrew or Aramaic root for the word death, to see, you know, its origin. What does it really mean, as opposed to what we say? Because when I think about it, I think about it the same way I think about everything else in relationship to who we are. For example, we say my life. We say my attitude. We talk about my mind. So if we separate all these things out, what we call my life, take it away. What we call my attitude, take it away. Then there is no us. So
My.
yeah, my.
That,
So
which is when we put that label "my" on it, it creates that duality anyway.
right.
I have mine, you must have yours.
So the question is, have we? It is necessary for us, because we see ourselves as individuals, to develop more positively these attitudes of my. And and see them more collective than we do separate. However, however, is it possible that because of the development, the origin, or the whatever of individual bodies, that we've also fragmented the mind, fragmented emotions, fragmented attitude, fragmented life itself, so that it is indeed fragmented in the other world too.
And that's part of what I think the shattered vessel is all about, concept. You
So,
know?
so do we bring it together? Could you turn the air up a little bit?
Yes.
That would be cool. So do we bring it, thank you, David. So do we bring it together, when we bring it together in this earth as being on quote unquote the same page, does that bring the pieces of the puzzle together so that the scenes are not seen and shown anymore, like in the other realm, right? That is no longer my mind, neither is it our mind, it is the mind. It is the attitude. You know what I'm saying? Because to say our is still individualistic.
Where this is going and how it's developing, I've written it, but you know, what you're writing and what actually happens are two different things. I wrote it one way, but as I think about it, what you just said is that journey that each of us has to take within. That journey of trying to know me, or know where I really came from. And all of the distractions or the external things and the beliefs and the concepts that we've learned are just those things culturally or either ethnically or racially, whatever, are the things, the veils that have been placed on us, so that we think I am my own person kind of concept. But really, when I take that internal journey, it's only then that I know that, no, it's not just about me. I am the greater whole, and I'm part of the greater whole. And each one of us has to do that, and that's what helps to put the pieces back together in a sense as well, getting that perspective.
When it says that, for I have come to mend the brokenhearted. Broken talks about a glass being broken into shards. You know, there's different shards of glass. And you know, if you break a glass, it's virtually impossible to pick up all of the pieces. So, good morning. So, are we, if we see the broken pieces not as individual vessels, but if we see the broken pieces as shattered, as attitude, as life, as mind, just pieces of that scattered. And each one of us who recognizes the understanding of one yet many concept.
Good morning.
More dear. If we recognize that, then is that the principle that actually mends up with the brokenhearted being thoughts? Is that does being on the same page mend that broken heart, bring those pieces back together? And being on the same page means that even though it appears that we're individuals, we're collectively one, does that happen that way? Or is it that we are destined to remain these individual glasses that are broken? Or even if they're back together again, are we still these individual pieces of glass? Or do we get to a place where there is a physical birth of a body, but because of the journey that we've taken, communication does not have to be verbal anymore, because there is a collective thought or collective mind, so to speak. You know, at what point does the individual, the belief that individual existence is real, at what point does that end, or does it end? Because even when we look at the afterlife or life experiences, right? We still see it or hear it coming from people who are describing what they saw, and what they saw were individuals, representations of individuals, I should say maybe, or the representation of the essence of individuals, as opposed to seeing this broad collective entity. Because I'm not, and maybe someone else has, but I've not read or been in the presence of anyone talking about this huge collective entity that it encountered. The only thing I've ever experienced is talking about light, but when it talks about encountering, it's always the individual essence of the being that it encounters.
I'm wondering if that's only because we're still straddling, we're still in two worlds in a sense. And in one world, if that's been the way that we recognize people, I wonder if that's simply a way to let us know that essence is the same individual, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that essence is not part of a collective. But I agree with you. I've not read anything that showed everything as the collective, because I think part of, we say it, some of us, but I don't know if I recognize it yet. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but suppose, Barbara, it is that you do recognize it, and what it actually is that in that quote-unquote individualistic essence that represents the whole, but the whole is never seen because the whole is the unspeakable name.
I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying that I've never heard anybody say, I just saw this ball of light and that's it. And I think understanding the essence of the person is what allows us to understand that the essence is part of something else, and I'm also part of something bigger. So I need to see that essence.
So we don't get beyond the essence to the it. The broader it is like, the way I perceive it is that the essence of which they speak is actually a beam of light that is coming from that entity that no one ever really sees. It's like looking directly into the sun, and
you really can't.
And not being able to see anything because of the light, but at the same time you can feel the rays, you can experience the rays of it. And but it is so bright or massive until you can't look at it, or your eyes can't focus on it. It's like when it says that
Well, Moses had to
see the backside.
You see the backside.
Yeah. And what does that really mean? What does that really mean? Is it our eyes looking into the sun Is that
Or is the essence the backside in a sense of the hushing? The essence is that people experience in their near-death experiences.
and the backside is the farthest distance from the front, which could that possibly be talking about? The backside is the farthest distance that we have from the it that brought all of this into existence. And it's necessary because if you're too close to it, you can't see it. But the further you're away from it, it makes it a bit easier to see. And in seeing it, at some point, you recognize that you don't have to take on the essence of that being, that you're already it. And by doing so, now, not only are you seeing a mirror, but you are a mirror. So there's no way, once you realize this, there's no way to separate one of the light rays from another, or one of the light waves from another. If light waves are coming in short linear sections, you can't separate one of those sections, just take one of them out. Maybe that, I don't know if that's not what we're expected to be. Because when it talks about we are the light of this consciousness, we're the enlightenment for this consciousness, what is it actually talking about? If that's the case, then when we quote unquote die, do we become a part of that consciousness, or do we recognize that we are that consciousness?
I think both.
And have been all along. So
It's like the Aramaic perspective. You can't separate the inside from the outside sort of perspective. You know, at some point in time, you can't separate. It is what it is. You can't.
it's like
It's hard
trying
to
to,
put words.
well, maybe it's like formation, vegetative, animal, spiritual, mineral. All of them are one, but we see them as being separately, right? And the reason all of them are one is because all of them have energy, all of them have life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about the inside and the outside, it's just another way of talking about formation. It's just another way of talking about Elohim Wayamini. It's another way of talking about the impossibility of being able to effectively live separate. Suppose that in order for us to live in this earth, well, let me back up. When Jesus was resurrected, he was able to move in the midst of people like the road to Emmaus, where he walked with those men that didn't know who he was. When he showed up, at the beach when they was frying fish and stuff. And it says that we are supposed to be like him, right? That we could do what he did. Now, what happens if everyone, or it can be, or is the way he is, do we have to go through the transitional stage of death to be there? No. So how do we get to the place where the transitional stage takes place, but yet it doesn't?
Yeah, I hear where you're going with that, and that I don't know the answer to it, but I hear exactly where you're going with that. If you do not, if you can experience, all that you can experience, oneness and unicity and compassion and
Yeah.
love, and the fact that you are it and it is you,
Yeah,
all of that in an NDE, and your death, quote unquote, your death experience, that I'm seeing as a near life experience.
yeah,
Uh, and you have that level of awareness, then the next step would be, okay, well, you know what, I ought to be able to incarnate somewhere else, in another country, or whatever, you know.
but you can. So how do we do that? Okay, let's say everyone in this room could do it, right? Everyone on the phone, everyone who listens, they could do it. Exactly that way. So how do we get to the place where, quote unquote, humanity can do this? So that balance can be truly brought. So that we
By
can,
doing it each one at a time until they,
but does it have to be each one at a time? Or can it happen to the point where we can bring such an infusion of,
right, but I'm
enlightenment?
saying each one of us who are at that point needs to continue that journey. And that, and on that journey, all of that light, impacts the whole. No, I'm not saying that every single individual
Right, okay,
has
okay.
has to equally get
Yeah.
there. No. But we it's like when you heal yourself, you heal the whole. When you become aware of who you are, that affects the whole. It puts it in the macro and it makes it available to other people. So that there are people who are seeing things now because of what we're doing that have never even thought to see those things before. When we leave Philadelphia, the things that those kids or whoever we're going to be speaking to will have access to is going to be different from what they have access to now. What they do with that is another question, but
So, what came to my mind when you said Philadelphia was the connection between the Civil War in Philadelphia with Robert Small. Suppose that the reality of change is about to be experienced in a spiritual way to the same degree or beyond that the country experienced a change during the course of the Civil War thing. Because what he did turned the tides in favor of the Union Army. So the connection, Philadelphia's supposed to be the city of enlightenment, brotherly love, right? South Carolina, the bastion of slavery, darkness. And no amount of darkness can expel the least amount of light. So in the midst of all this darkness, there is this flicker of light going to this place to make a connection, one female, one male, so that something can be produced. And the production of it has nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with economics, nothing to do with socialization, nothing to do with expunging records, none of that. It has everything to do everything from a purely spiritual perspective. Purely spiritual perspective in that is based upon what the areas were supposed to be, and in the midst of the darkness in this area, this light was birthed in order to change it and to become a mirror for what the city of brotherly love is supposed to be, as opposed to what it has become. And the way it's done, as I said, not through those other isms, but through recognizing that we constantly are living in our death experience. And the near-death experience has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about, but the near-death experience is getting so close to being alienated from the Creator until we've almost lost our sense of existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in my writing, I call it like putting, pressing the pause button. What are the things in our lives? Are the experiences that we perceive as bad, that we judge bad or good or whatever? Are the experiences that are just pauses in our lives that get our attention, that give us the opportunity to create a desired end? In other words, this is the mutants have this I don't know what it's called, but the mutants one segment of it was the guy who could stop time,
Yeah.
and they were surrounded by police or something who were trying to stop them, he and his friends, and he stopped time and he went all the way around the room and he did little things like this and
Yeah.
changed the position of the bullet that had the bullet that had already been fired, changed the position of the bullet and all of that stuff. And then when time started again, the police were doing that to themselves and the bullets just whizzed by people's heads.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is all these pauses for us to get it right.
Let me offer something. Maybe the pause button was in 2012.
Or what?
The pause button is in 2012.
Oh,
Now the play button has been pushed.
now the players back, the
Because what I think about
Playback.
2012 is that we were destined to become just as extinct as Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal.
depending on how we interpret it and
Right.
acting on it.
Right. Because I do believe that the Mayan concept of that end was really in play until some decision was made to stand in the gap, so to speak. So since that was the pause button,
Mm.
maybe. And now, since then, it's been played. And with the journey being traveled in an unknown territory, headed towards a quote-unquote city that we know nothing of, and in our own mind doesn't exist because we don't know what we're looking for. But at the same time, being true to the journey carries us not to a geographical place, but to a spiritual understanding. And that is the reason maybe some of us have been in these realistically, experiences of struggle and darkness and anxiety and frustration in the last few weeks. Feeling burdens that we did experience before, things that wouldn't bother you in the past, now they were. It's the more you are writing and making preparation, the more that each of us are struggling with that, even though we're not even though we're not there with you, in terms of the physical thing, we are there with you in terms of the spiritual aspects of it. And but we are interpreting the struggles based upon what our eyes see. And we're seeing the struggle as what we are dealing with daily, when in actuality it has nothing to do with that. The only reason we think it's that is because we have not been still long enough to say, okay, what is this really? What does this really have to do? Has nothing to do with Audrey being at school. Has nothing to do with me having to intervene in someone's life, doing whatever. But everything to do with making making, making a feeble attempt to pin what's going to be an extraordinary event.
What I relate in the writings is just the distractions. All these things are distractions. All the things I've been dealing with have been distractions that I've had to push pause in the sense, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you know, to stay focused. You know, it's like every time something would pull me off the path, seemingly tried to. I said, no,
To me, what you have written means a lot right now, but in a week it's not gonna mean anything, because I believe that the writing, the time we put in the writing, the study, etc., is only an experience, a disciplinary experience
I agree with that.
to give us opportunity to be still long enough to be infused with something much greater than what we are writing.
I agree with that.
So, and that is one of the reasons religion doesn't work. That's one of the reasons education doesn't work, politics doesn't work, because whatever you write, whatever you conceive, you have to stick to the script. But when you recognize that it's simply a disciplinary experience, now you're open, so that whatever comes actually flows. And it gives you opportunity to see far beyond what you see, and to read from a scroll that's only visible to you, and recognize that what's on that paper, it was simply something to cause you to push pause. And that the distractions come because we are so accustomed to doing our quote unquote research, you know, making sure that we got things right. And the distractions are also part of that discipline to keep us focused here. And the journey itself is not a destination, but a continuous destiny for the purpose of everyone being able to travel that road as we must. And believing that we are one step from, or one breath from seeing the unicity of it all. Because if one, and I use this very loosely, if one man could do what Jesus did, and I use that also loosely because when it comes to your name being Barbara, mine being Jane, right? Jesus had no name. That's why I use it loosely. He had a responsibility. Yeshua, what it means, it's not a name, it's a responsibility. So when I say being able to do what he did, I mean embracing the concept of his being. Because the concept of his being is that regardless of what you see in front of you or experience, or you think you are experiencing, please understand something. Yahweh delivers you from it all. That's the concept of Jesus. That's the essence of it, as opposed to that being the name. So, are we one breath from being that essence? Why do I raise this? Because we are reluctant to say that we are messianic, or that we have the ability to do what we were destined to do, right, which is messianic, but we're even more reluctant to say that we are the essence of the deliverance of Yahweh. We're more reluctant to say that. It's if that is the case, it's because we have been taught it's blasphemous, which is the wrong understanding of blasphemy anyway. But if that's the case, then does not everything change when we become not more comfortable with it, but not when we believe it, but when we know it?
Yeah, maybe that's the final veil that,
Yeah.
you know, we've got all these different weights, if you will, of coverings, like that one has a backing, so
Yeah.
the sun doesn't get through. Maybe that's the final one that we just gotta rid ourselves of
Yeah.
and just be.
Yeah. So. No, we're making sense.
No,
You know
we're
what?
not supposed to be making
Yeah.
sense. It's supposed to be resonating. But I understand, I hear what you're saying. And what you're saying is mind-blowing as it should be, because the mind shouldn't be able to wrap itself around what we're talking about.
Yeah, it wraps itself around the mind.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's not that you're gonna encapsulate it
Yeah,
with your mind.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, what you're saying does resonate with me because it's helped me understand that although I've been excited about Philadelphia, I've also been anxious about other stuff.
Yeah.
But now that you've put it in perspective, I can see that it wasn't that stuff necessarily. It was just, I don't know, something in the air, in the atmosphere or something that's ready for a change or something.
I think everything has reached a crescendo. And what I mean by everything, I'm talking about, be it politics, economics, whatever, religion, all of it has reached a crescendo, and now there's no place else for it to go. It cannot rise any further. And the demise has sped up. And the reason it has sped up is because there is someone who stood in the gap. And when I say someone, I'm talking about a collective someone who stood in the gap and continues to do so. If what I'm experiencing is real, and I have no reason to think it's not, we're going to cease being busy in the natural sense. We're always busy. The people on this journey are always busy. One of my favorite terms is that the world is ran by tired people. And because we're always busy. And when we stop to think about it, our being busy changes nothing except the way our bodies feel. I believe that I'm experiencing what I think I am. We come into a place of rest. And the rest of which I speak is not a rest where everything ceases, but a rest where we stop being busy and be busy. We're busy with stuff that in this consciousness, but to be busy is to be still. Just being still and and focusing. If I say, let me do what I do, and I say, don't worry about it, I have this doesn't mean I'm going out doing anything. I have this simply means that I have this. And the busyness of it is that it is done in an instant. And it doesn't have to
You
change,
just intend it and then just be,
that's it.
that's the
And it doesn't change right here with the visual, but I see that it's different here. I don't see what the difference is, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel. So the reason we have these distractions and this anxiousness is because we're accustomed to being busy, but we're also accustomed to figuring out what's gonna happen. Having our agendas, having a fixed itinerary, you know. For the last 3 weeks, George and I have been talking about what we're gonna do, and I think LaVon has the better insight than he and I. She says that you can write all this stuff, but you don't know what you want. You know, that kind of thing. And we don't. But we are so accustomed to being so very well organized until we are actually disorganized. The key to it is is not being so scripted until you feel like you have to stick to the script. That's where the rest comes, not sticking to the script. Because think about it. At the onset, this was our going to experience the city, just to see the city that we worked in, just to do nothing except just be there. And it morphed into something totally different, in that the experience transcends what we thought was going to be a social experience. And guess what it morphed into? I don't know. It morphed into anxiousness. It morphed into distractions. It morphed into frustrations that appeared to be something that they were really not. It resulted in walls being constructed that had to be scaled in order to get to this place where we are, you know, finally set to go. And if we have to accept, I guess, the reality that everyone doesn't like to scale walls. It's easier to sit at the base of the wall and hope things are going to change than it is to scale the wall to make them change. And that's what religion is, sitting at the base of the wall, waiting for someone else to preach it or to scale it and open the door from the other side for them to come through. That's not the way it's done. When you think about what Jesus did, first of all, there's no such thing as Judaism, but the religion of the day that he dealt with, what did he do? He transcended doctrine, transcended economics, transcended vocation, transcended race, transcended everything. Because without that transcendency, there is no peace. There is no balance, there's no unicity. And what religion and government has done has reconstructed everything that he transcended. Muhammad transcended the same thing, didn't he? I mean, if there is going to be peace, you have to transcend governmental policies religious doctrine, educational forums, economic status, and social avatar, and all these things gotta be just, and what's left after you transcend that? After you leave, after you go beyond all of that, what's left? What's left? When you strip away all of those things, what's left? What's left when that's gone? If there's no socialization, no economy, none of that, what's left? You know what the shame of the matter is? We don't know. Because the thing that's left is us, and we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, because we've structured ourselves and built these things around us and, yeah.
And the issue with that, I think, is that you cannot accomplish any of that. Sounds probably crazy, but you can't accomplish it in the light. You have to navigate it in the darkness. Because if it's the light, then these obstacles are not there. You see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So you actually have to navigate in the darkness. And in order to navigate in the darkness, you have to trust what we call intuition. You have to trust that you will know where the destructive obstacles are. You don't avoid them, but you navigate them to the point where you leave a trail behind so others can navigate without having to go through the same thing you've gone through, like the end of the day person.
That's the opposite of that is what I talked about is the path that's well tread.
Yeah.
And the path that's well tread is, we go by the same rules and regulations that everybody else. Got that herd mentality where we follow the herd regardless of where it goes, and it could go on a cliff, and we just go over the cliff with the herd. So what you're talking about, and what I tried to describe was taking that path that everybody else hadn't taken,
Yeah.
and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it always leads to a valley of pain and suffering, or a mountain of despair. No one ever.
How about and a mountain?
Yeah,
You don't get either or necessarily.
You're right. Because,
You get all.
see, peace, joy does not keep you focused. Pain keeps you focused. Peace doesn't struggle keeps you focused. If you really think about it, when things are peaceful and joyous, you just float right along. You're not focused really on anything. But let pain come into your life. When I got the text from you concerning John's sister, the first thing that I focused on was the pain of that family, right? Prior to that, when I was thinking about him, I was thinking about a horseshoe pit behind my storage building. That's what I was thinking about, a horseshoe
You
pit.
can still think about the horseshoe John's, okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, but
It's his
my
brother
point, yeah, the point of the matter
who
is,
also throws in a horseshoe pit, but now he's
Yeah.
got this
there you go.
pain and this grief
Yeah,
of
this
dealing
pain.
with his wife.
Now he's focused.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, on the surface, it's like, if that's what you need to keep you focused, then what is the point of it all? Why even go through it? The reason is because it's not the pain and the suffering, it's how you deal with what you're forced to focus on. And if you don't know how to deal with it, then consultation helps us to deal with it. My brother's keeper, the hedge around my brother. If we focus on it, if we are forced to focus, then we get to the point where we are not forced to focus. It becomes a life of focus. I'm not kind to you. I don't have to be kind to you because I am kindness. That kind of thing. If you have to think about doing the right thing, if you have to think about
It's
being
not a
kind,
doing, but a being.
you're not kind.
It's a being
It's
instead
a
of a
being,
doing at
yes.
that point.
Because if you, now don't get me wrong, we have been doing it for so long until we have to get to a place where we don't have to focus on it by being kind. Over and over and over again. Now you don't have to think about it. Kindness, that's who you are. But if you have to think about, I should have been kind to that person, then you're not kind. If you have to stop and say, am I happy? No, you're not. But you don't have to, you understand what I'm saying? And just like you don't learn how to be patient without being in impatient positions, you don't learn how to be kind, be the essence of kindness, to the extent that you don't have to think about it unless you're put in situations where you have to be, which means that you're going to come in contact with circumstances, situations, and people who are not so kind to you. And sometimes the experience is under the very roof that we live under. And sometimes it's not, but regardless of where it is, it never changes until you be kind. It just keeps coming back and coming back, and until you are kindness, or until you are the essence of what we were created to be. Because I believe, and maybe I said this, I don't know, that all of this, all these obstacles, all these struggles, all the anger, all of the manipulation, racism, extra, all this stuff, every bit of this had to be an Elohim. Had to be. Because if we were created in his image, Adam had to get it from someplace, right? So why would that be? Why would that be when Elohim said that? The scripture says that he repented that he had made Adam. What was he talking about? That he repented that he had made Adam. Yeah. Could it possibly be that Elohim was saying, I shouldn't have made Adam with all that stuff that I put in it, or it. I should have made it with the perfected stuff. Now, if Elohim did that, then who made Elohim? Where did all that stuff come from? So it's a series, it appears to me to be not a series, but a spiritual generational thing, where all of this stuff is to be perfected. And whatever comes after that, who knows? But the focus is and I know that I would be lambasted and probably tarred and feathered and all the other stuff for saying that all of these things that we despise came from Elohim. Because there's no way for us to have this in us if it didn't. Does that make sense to you? Where did it come from? It had to come from the one whose image we created me. But
Is that part of the power, though? If I have the power, then I have the power to do anything. And if I want my offspring to understand clearly its essence, then it has to see it has to see both parts. If part of being the creator is knowing everything, then part of knowing everything is that, you know, there's some jealousy, there's whatever else, as well as there's the love, there's the hate, as well as the compassion, and part of the creator is creative essence is my offspring needs to be able to choose what it's going to exude to the world. How we're gonna know if we were created with perfection, for lack of a better word, that could be a little boring.
Well, it wouldn't be no free will.
That's
See,
a little boring.
we say that we have free will, right? But that's another cute way of saying that all the nature of what we call darkness or evil, unrightness, that these aspects are in Elohim. That's where we got them from. He just perfected them. It just perfected them. That's where they came from.
They got perfected in us
But
because
it
we got so far from.
It created the tree of knowledge of good and evil, didn't it? So it had to come from someplace.
That's what I'm thinking about, the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
So that's where it had to come from Elohim. So our cute way of saying that without saying it, because we are scared, we're going to be blasphemous, is say, well, we do have free will. Well, what is free will? You have the freedom to do what you want to do. So if we have free will, does Elohim have free will? Yeah. So does Elohim make choices? Yeah. So if Elohim makes choices, then all of these other things are in it, just like it is in us. Rape, murder, robbery.
That's blasphemous.
You see where I'm coming from? It had to come from someplace. And it is discomforting because of previous teaching to even think in those terms. But it has to, it just didn't, if we were created in the image.
But the free will is the will to choose to do
Absolutely.
it according to the tree of life
Yeah,
versus.
the tree of evil, yeah. So both had to be brought, it does not, and see, this is why it is it's so easy for people to embrace this being called Satan as opposed to it being, our attitudes, etc. It's easier to do that because now you don't have to say that this comes from Elohim as well. But then I raise this question. If you believe that Satan is a separate entity, who created it? Where did it come from? If all life comes from the Creator, if all darkness and light comes from the Creator, then this thing that you call Satan was also created by Elohim. And then, if you say that all your joy and peace comes from the Creator, and then you turn right around and say, the devil stole your peace, then
Does the devil have as much rank as the Creator does?
so you put him on parity with the Creator. So, and I think it's time for us to look at it, regardless of how uncomfortable it may make us, to look at the reality of it, not in a religious, logical manner, but realistically, what is this thing? We have fooled ourselves with these pretty words for so long until even those who sincerely want to see the light is still blinded by the darkness because of these layers of teachings that has made us, or put us in a place of non-thinkers,
Bondage.
which is frightening. Yeah. So we are not as enlightened as we think.
You need to get out of my presentation.
Oh, okay.
The way I call that was we're on automatic and we just do things, you know, the way that we always did it. And we don't take the time to really stop and think about, is this really the right way? We're just on automatic.
Yeah.
And that's part of, when we even with light, we're still on automatic in certain aspects. So there's still work. It's not work, but work to be done to move all of that out of the way so that we can look at something, as you're talking about, non-judgmentally. Non-judgmentally not means not bringing all our church ideas and definitions and whatever, cultural definitions. And just look at it. Like when you meditate, you just let thoughts come through, and what you try to do, it can be, boy, the thought of you murdering somebody.
Yeah.
But the issue is to let it come through and not judge it, not put tagging an emotion to it, because when you don't tag an emotion to it, it just goes on. When you tag an emotion to it, that's when it seems to begin to capture. And so where did that come from? And you start massaging it and looking at it, and that's not what meditation is about. Meditation is just letting all that stuff come through until you get to a place that you feel centered, that you're non-judgmental, and that you just breathe.
I mean, you think about it. Jesus is the superior Adam, or as it was translated, second Adam. What does that mean? Not to it, Jesus, but to you. What is it saying about you? If it says that he's the superior Adam, and he said you're going to do greater things than he did, then does that not make you superior to, not him in terms of better than, but superior in terms of what you are responsible for? And I believe that the prime responsibility of ours is to weed out the terror that's religion. Weed it out from the spiritual. Not by hurting people in terms of their feelings, but by recognizing the light of the truth and speaking, putting it into the macro. Because when we talk about, we have to change the perception of Adam as being a man, as opposed to being a concept. And alter the course of things when we see Eve as being a woman. Look at the uproar in California. This kid gets 6 months for rape. This kid gets what for rape? 6 months, the number of man. That speaks volumes to me about where we are. There is a huge push for man, and I use this very loosely, for the masculine energy to maintain its dominance over everything that is. And the 6 months represents the desire of man's dominance over the feminine energy. That speaks volumes to me. And how this plays out will be a determining factor in the journey that we take from this point
Could
forward.
it be though that this is just one aspect of the tares that have to just grow up with the weed? And the wheat is what we put in the macro. The wheat are the seeds that we put in the macro. Lots of times the weeds grow faster than, in terms
Yes.
of the eye,
Yeah,
much faster than the actual plant that you planted.
yeah,
It shoots up and it can even perpetrate
yeah.
the plant that you planted. But just knowing that we've got it in the macro, it's just another tear out there. It's gonna, when it's time for the harvest, you're gonna be able to clearly see it. Everybody's gonna be able to clearly see it for what it really is. And so, in spite of all of that, the seeds that are sown, that you desired fruit from will give fruit.
Well, look at this also. When I look at these things that are playing out, Paul Ryan says that that is a classical definition of racism. Speaking of Donald Wright. But I support him. Do you hear that? So what is he saying? Yes, he's a racist.
About himself.
So my party comes
But
first.
so, my party is racist too.
Yeah.
Because how can, if you, why would you want to hold a party together with racism if you're not racist? So, I'm not looking at it politically, because politically doesn't matter to me. What I'm looking at is through the same eye that I'm looking at the 6 months in California.
Well,
A resurgence, a push.
and for his father to say, he's getting all of this for 20 minutes of action.
I heard that.
And
What?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I heard
I
that.
did.
That was the
Yeah.
statement that the
That was
man
just
made to the judge.
to the judge.
Oh, yeah, oh,
Shouldn't do
okay.
any time.
His life is
That's-
being
that-
destroyed.
No, you
20
want to
minutes
say,
in there.
oh my God, no, that part I did, that prison would adversely impact his life, but rape did not adversely impact hers.
Right.
Of course not.
Yeah, and then this kid in Tennessee, this black kid football player, they got 15 to 20, and she, and she wasn't unconscious.
But
I mean, come on now. And I'm glad it happened, because it's not because it reveals what's happening politically as much as it speaks spiritually.
Yeah.
I am virtually divorced from politics. And the more intimate I become with my spiritual wife or spiritual partner, the more divorced I become from politics. Because I see the vanity in it. And I see how it is more representative of what's happening in the other realm. And it does not tell me that that things are happening bad in the other realm, that they are confused. What it tells me is that victory, for lack of a better term, is on the horizon. Because you don't fight this hard unless you're about to lose something. And in spite of all the gerrymandering, you're still about to lose something. You don't fight this hard. Creator doesn't allow tyrants to run against tyrants unless something is on the horizon. Good people don't get damaged. Therefore, you have these two. One is the economic tyrant, the other is a racial tyrant. You see? So I see, I see that this
But
is,
isn't that what we've been talking about, these isms of the sexism, the genderism, the economicism, money is the God,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah. And all of these things are rising again and they're just perpetrating, but they're not truth. So it shouldn't be unexpected for us.
but it's reflective of what you get ready to present next
Yeah.
time. This life near death experience thing, that's what this is. Think about what I'm saying. People are like, oh my God, what's going to happen to us? It doesn't matter which one of them wins, we're still in trouble. That's near death. You see, that's the experience. People are afraid of this near death experience, of quotation, of course. So this is the manifestation of what you're about to present. And regardless of what we or anyone else thinks or feels, the Creator brought into existence this nation for the benefit of bringing order to this earth consciousness. Because as goes, this country goes well. Ask yourself this. Okay, we see everywhere. Things we hear. We must fight them now, so we have to fight them here. Thank all the veterans for fighting for our freedom, right? Right. How many veterans you know that fought for freedom for America? All of them died in the Revolutionary War. They fought for freedom for the land they had taken. All of them died in the Revolutionary War. What war since the Revolutionary War has been fought to keep invaders out of this country? It's something to think about, isn't it? But if you
World War
could, World War II was fought because America was smuggling.
Well, we fought the Japanese to keep them from invading, but
No, we fought the Japanese to keep them from taking their islands back. Because if they wanted to invade, they could have reached California.
Yeah, because they're in the Midway Islands.
Yes, they could have reached California. See, that's what I'm talking about. Hiroshima and Nagasaki was done, the Japanese already sent a letter of surrender 2 weeks before the bomb was dropped. So this is not, so the point of the matter is, if you control the narrative,
yeah.
you control the minds of the people. And if the people are so caught up in nationalism or patriotism until they don't question the narrative, no matter how intelligent they are, they still buy into it. Some of the most intelligent people that you will ever meet sit up in church every Sunday and hear something that's nowhere in the scriptures at all. Has nothing to do with them at all. But yet, they buy into the narrative. So, we cannot allow the narrative to be the same. Neither can we control the narrative. We must become the narrative. And not by virtue of this deciding what the narrative is going to be, but by virtue of putting ourselves in a place where the Creator shows us what the narrative is. Makes the narrative be what it wants it to be, as opposed to us doing all of the research we do and all the teaching that we do, and then scribbling something on some paper saying this is what it is, this is the narrative, and then putting the fence around it so that saying that what's on this paper is all it is. Because no matter what you write, I write it in a study, there's always more. Always more. So it's in that regard that I talk about, that I'm saying, we must be the narrative. So, and when you, and it's not just the war, when you look at different aspects of things that's said in relationship to what is called patriotism, you begin to see how the narrative is completely manipulated. You know, it's not just that. It's just there is so many other things that's there, like the idea of kids want something for nothing because they want to go to college free, and or but not saying anything about a kid graduating from a state-supported school with $100,000 worth of debt. Our kids want something for nothing, you don't leave it, watch them, they're at home with their parents. Hell, they're at home with their parents because they can't afford to live anyplace else. That kind of thing. Marriages are on the decline. Yes, they are, because they can't afford to be married. Yeah, both of them got $100,000 student loan debt. That kind of, nobody thinks about that. But I think all of these things are done to push people to a place of thought. And the one person who has impacted the way people think about this whole quote-unquote American narrative is what Bernie Sanders did with these young people. Young people are making other people think. Now, what do we do with that? It's up to us to become the narrative, so it will be in the macro. So while they are thinking, these are the thoughts that will be impacting them. Does that resonate with you? That's what we have to do. See, it would be a waste of time for us to gather if all we are doing is just gathering. Just to talk, with no change in sight. It would just be a waste of time. I just get up in the morning and put on my suit and go have a good time. Start the morning hooping again. So anyway, I don't know how we got to where we are this morning.
Evelyn wasn't even here to blame.
No.
But the
Ms.
question,
Barber.
asked the question.
What'd I say?
You were talking about death. I remember that.
Oh,
being-
yeah.
Okay.
But that what you're gonna present, that's, yeah, always gonna present you right. But anyway, I did a thing, I was trying to think about it, recall some of the things. Last week I taught this thing on the reality of Elohim. And if you put a gun in my head and ask me what I taught, you had to pull 3 hours. I got to go back and listen at the CD because I don't even know what I said. But it relates, I do know it relates to what you are talking about.
Oh, everything is always related.
In such a powerful way. Questions, comments?
Well, I'm glad we talked about the California thing, because that's been part of my anxiety too. Because, I mean, what does it say about us that so much of that could be happening on college campuses and people getting away with it?
But see,
I mean, it seems like college campuses are not safe for women or blacks now.
well, they never have been.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it, if I don't respect my daughters or the females in my life, right, I'm not going to respect anybody else's female, right?
Mm.
the whole foundation of this system is predicated on dominating females. Look at what we talked about, was it last week? We talked about the invisible burkas. Or was it you? That's what it was. Invisible, when you look at the Southern Baptist Church, the females can't teach men.
Yeah, can't do
They
anything.
can't,
Oh,
they,
yeah, we
that's
did.
invisible burkas. It extends beyond that, you know?
And maybe that's part of the Paul Ryan thing too. The very thought that this female could be
President,
president.
yeah. So that's, yeah, and I'm glad we brought it, it came to this place, because I think that we've just laid a foundation for what is to come within, in the next week or so.
On the other hand, or also, I happened to read a little bit of what was happening at Muhammad Ali's
Oh, yeah,
celebration. And,
oh, yeah.
Malcolm X's daughter, I just saw so much light in what she was saying and the way she said it. And she was coming from a frame of reference, even though she's quote unquote Muslim. Yeah, I mean, she came from the frame of reference of basic truth.
Yeah.
So.
A rabbi, I heard part of him on Sirius Radio, the rabbi who spoke. I'm like, no one could have said that but him. He spoke from basic truth in relationship to Netanyahu and the Palestinians and the whole Israel question. He challenged that whole theory that Israel was just right all the time. And then after him came this Shoshone, and he spoke in the native language, then translated it. And when he translated the principles that he was saying, all of them dealt with the same basic principles. And one of the commentators said, after having the rabbi speak the way he did, Brother Bill was going to have a problem. Because the guy spoke with such power and truth, and he was referencing whether or not Bill was going to challenge what the guy said about Israel because of Hillary running for president, to be on the same stage with that. I didn't get a chance to hear all of it, but I know how cable works. At some point they're going to play it again, the whole film.
I hope so, because
Yeah.
I didn't get all of it, but
I want to record it because there were some powerful presentations made there. Very
and even his wife, who summed up in a nutshell when she spoke everything, all the struggles, but that he always maintained his sense of love for man, regardless of economic status, regardless of, as a matter of fact, he seemed to gravitate more to those who were poor and downtrodden, and so,
Yeah, it was, I don't know whether it's true or not, but it was said back in the day that he became a Muslim to keep the mafia out for him.
and whatever the reason,
But it was serendipitous
yeah.
in the way it happened, because back then the mafia was controlling boxing anyway, but they didn't mess with Muslims, period. So, but whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. But one of the things that bothered me about it is how they tried to minimize or whitewash who he really was in terms of what he truly said and believed, and how they skirted the issues when he really talked about how, and paraphrasing him, the white kid could get on the courthouse steps and burn his draft card, and nothing happens to him, and I'm a conscientious objector, and you won't even allow me to work in America. I'm the slave, and you won't allow me to work. To just say that and not address the underlying meaning of what he was saying in relationship to what's taking place now.
That's a violation of his fundamental constitutional right of freedom of speech. He was being persecuted for his freedom of speech.
He was a slave.
And
He had no
people
speech.
don't see the irony in that.
Well, it was two things going on there. Not only was he being persecuted for that, but he was also being punished for being a Muslim.
And
Because
And how dare you be black and say you're not gonna fight?
yeah, and how dare you be Muslim
yeah,
and say we don't recognize this as a religion,
yeah,
so you can't be a conscientious objector.
right.
So, but no,
So that's another persecution because of his religion.
so that's what dealing with the underlying meaning of that. When you think about, I'm the slave, they won't let me work. That's the same thing happened in Flint when GM left, and no other industry, manufacturer would go in. Same thing happened in Baltimore. And you go city after city, Cleveland, city after city, same things. All of the major manufacturers left. And why did they leave? They didn't just leave for cheap labor. That's not the reason. The government has made a conscious decision that the Africans in this country were amassing too much wealth too quickly. And they needed to stop it. And they did. Because when you think about who the people who were in those plants, they were people who left the South to go to Detroit. These are the people. And what were they doing? They were educating the kids. And there was and still is, proportionally speaking, a greater number of Africans in America who were being educated and who were moving to financial stability at a greater rate than they expected it to be. And they stopped it with student loans and with the industry moving out of the inner cities. And guess who bought into it? The black church. The black church embraced the same Southern Baptist principles that kept us slaves. That's who embraced it. And see it as being a capitalist patriot. When in essence, it was destructive. That's what happened. And I say this often, and maybe I say it too often. If I do, just get used to it. I'm the 4th generation out of slavery. And think about the generation before me in the inner cities, where they were, what they were capable of doing. Think about it. And it wasn't because of major businesses. Because the principles in the generation, especially before me, and even during my time, but especially before me, they were preachers and teachers. And they were doing the hard labor in the factory work that other people didn't want. And what did they do with that? They stabilized communities because they had their own businesses in the community, didn't they? So they ended that. So when he says, I'm the slave and you won't let me work, that extends to now. It stopped everybody from working, to be honest with you. So what do? You anesthetize the whole community by importing drugs. And we said that.
You also recreate slavery through service industry.
Absolutely. And the only difference is this. What happened during slavery? You had just enough to eat and a little shack to lay your head in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, because of the service industry, you have just enough to eat and a shack to live in. Same principle. Exactly the same principle. The only difference is that instead of you getting it from the leftovers that's killed on the farm, you get a check now and go buy the food for the preservatives.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only difference. And all of these things are simply manifestations that are being used as a propellant so that we will move towards the light. That's it. When people are comfortable, they don't do anything. They don't do anything. And the funny thing about it is that the people who usually force change come from a group of people who are otherwise comfortable in their lifestyle. I remember during the 60s, I was talking to a friend of mine and she was telling me about this guy whose name is going to be in the African American Museum, and he has permanent seating because of the amount of money he contributed. I said, you know what? The people who laid the foundation for that to be a reality have no seating, don't have notoriety, they have no plaques. We just did what we did. But we were the kids who were at the top of our class. You see? In school, we were the ones who were the honor students and sacrificed all of it, coming from a place of comfort. But the people who are not comfortable are the ones who, I guess it's hard to move because you're fighting every day to live, you know? You have to scrap for everything every single day. That's my commentary. Okay, I'm done. We done recording?
We are finished recording.
Okay. Not yet.